Okay, we are almost there with our recap of classes in JavaScript. The last thing I want to talk about here is the super keyword. So super comes into play when we have a class inheriting or extending another class. And it specifically comes into play when we have a constructor added on to this child class. So admin player right now, it has no constructor, right? When we create this admin variable, we didn't provide any values, but we actually could provide values. And what would happen is that JavaScript automatically calls the constructor function of the parent class, as long as it finds one, that is. So it will find this one. And if we provide a first and a last, like admin, and then how about micadmin, like that, that's our first and last. Let's take a look over here. If we look at admin, it does actually have first set to admin, last set to micadmin. And that's because we didn't have our own constructor here, but player had a constructor and JavaScript called it. And that's great. But sometimes, a lot of the time, we may want to add on something and have some sort of constructor and some functionality on the child class. Like let's say every admin has a list of powers, or admin powers or privileges or something like that. And powers, we need to set this dot powers equals powers, just like that. Well, now how is this going to work? Because we got a constructor here that's expecting one thing, a list of powers, and then we still have the player constructor that's expecting first and last. And currently, only one of those is going to run. Only the first one that JavaScript encounters, which would be this one. And so we're going to end up with this dot powers set to, right now, just admin, but that's probably not what we want. We would end up with something like, maybe we'll add in our powers of delete and I don't know, I'm making these powers up, restore world. I don't know what those powers mean, but those are the powers that an admin has. Now, if we look at our admin, we get an error. Must call super constructor in derived class before accessing this or returning from derived constructor. So JavaScript gives us an error saying, whoa, you have a constructor in the child class, but you didn't first call the parent class constructor, and you have to do that. So that's where super comes in. Super is going to, if we add those parentheses, it references the constructor function of the super class or the parent class or the derived class, the base class, whatever you want to call it. In our case, the player constructor. Now I can pass through values, but right now I'm not. So that's okay. We'll just end up with an admin that has no first and no last. They're undefined. But we do end up with the constructor function running from the parent class. We can see secret printed out. And then we also have powers. And that's coming from here, right, in the admin player constructor function. So we could add on first and last and then powers. And then we pass through first and last to super, which will then provide first and last here. We end up with this dot first equal to first, this dot last equal to last. But then that finishes, and we set this dot powers equal to powers. So now, if we pass a first and a last, we'll go back to admin, micadmin. There we go. Admin, micadmin, and then our powers. Our admin instance now has a first name, a last name, is admin, and it has powers. We have two constructor functions running, right? We call super in order to run this first constructor function from the parent class player, and then that finishes, and we can do our own stuff in this constructor function on admin player. So that's the role of super. What's nice is that JavaScript actually tells you a pretty helpful error that says you need to call super before you can do what you're trying to do. But it's always confusing. I mean, super is not just limited to JavaScript. It's a keyword in a lot of languages, but it's just kind of a confusing concept. But it comes into play with inheritance. You got multiple constructors. You have to call the parent constructor first using super, pass through any values you want. That finishes. Do your own stuff in the child class constructor. Okay, that is pretty much all we need to talk about with classes in the world of JavaScript. Now we teleport back to TypeScript and we learn how to do this stuff in TypeScript land.